Hi there and welcome back to my channel. I'm Claire Manning from Thirsty Brush and I'm here to show you another paper crafting video today where we're going to do actually two fun techniques to make two cards at once. The main technique will be some embossing, and we're actually going to deboss into our embossing, but we're also going to create some backgrounds first of all on some using some distress oxides. So I've got two card blanks here and two pieces of just slightly smaller than 5x7 card, and this isn't a new technique necessarily with the oxides. I've seen it done on a few other videos as well, but I needed to create some backgrounds for the card before I did the embossing technique to show you, so I thought I'd use this technique and use this opportunity to show you as well in case it's something you haven't done before. So what we do is we put the colour on one panel and we use quite a lot of colour, which is why I'm kind of just smushing on using the pads themselves, and then just blending very lightly with a sponge applicator. You don't need to be too perfect here, because what we're actually going to do is create two backgrounds from this one lot of colour. So pick two colours, three colours, however many you want to blend in together. Pop those on the first panel of card, and then you take the second panel, and what we need to do is attach them together, and I'm just using a bit of washi tape or low tack, say masking tape, something like that, just to keep them in place. So it's going to transfer some of the ink onto the other one. So open it up then, and we need to spritz just with some plain water all over the side that we've just inked. Loads and loads of water and loads of ink, because it needs enough to do the two backgrounds. And then now pop that through the die cutting machine with no dies, literally just popping it through with the two plates. You need to check with your die cutting machine, but I just put the two plates and the plastic shim, and that just kind of presses the two pieces together, and you get two lovely distress oxide backgrounds with those lovely little kind of water splashes as well from the spritzing. Two for the price of one, or about the same amount of time in fact that it took for one. So I've just given them a dry off because we're going to do an embossing technique now on top. So I've made myself two very simple stencils, one heart one and one of this kind of distressed square. I'll keep the bits that have popped out for another project, but I'm going to use the kind of the negative, if you like, and I'm going to use it like a stencil. So I'm going to hold it in place wherever I want it on my panel of card, and then just keep that in place with some washi tape. And I'm using the grids on my board just to keep it all nice and straight, and then I'm going straight in. That wobbled a little bit, so I just restuck it down. I'm going straight in with the whole pad of the embossing ink. This is our Thirsty Brush Luminosity embossing ink, but you can use Versamark or whichever one you've got at home too. And then I'm going in with our Gold Digger, Thirsty Brush Gold Digger powder, and we're going to emboss and heat set that now so it gives us a lovely heart. So the look of this technique is to get a kind of stamped debossed image in our melted embossing powder. So to do that, the embossing powder needs to be a lot thicker than it normally is. So you'll see in a moment it is sped up a little bit, but you'll see I go in 4 to 5 times over and over again. We're using that same stencil, whether it's the heart one or the square one that we do in a little while as well, and you build up the embossing powder. Now of course, if you like the look of this but you don't want to do the debossing, that's fine, just use one, and then you could always stick a sentiment that you've stamped out or die cut out from somewhere else. But if you want to get this deboss look, what you do is pop your stencil back on, go over again with the ink and again with the powder, and heat set again. And like I say, I think I did it 4 times. 4 to 5 will give you enough depth in the embossing powder to get a good debossed imprint. So get your gun nice and hot, or your heat tool nice and hot, so it will melt all that lovely powder. So what I also did was the two cards you'll see in a moment, where the two inks go from the speckled egg into the shabby shutters. I used one that way round and the other one I used the other way round, so the shabby shutters is at the top. So this was a great excuse as well to get out my Distress Oxides, being as I've just added that brand new speckled egg colour to my stash. Hopefully we'll get some in our shop as well soon, but I've just literally just bought my own one and been having a play, so I couldn't wait to make a quick background. It goes lovely with other blues and other greens. I know a lady on my design team, Leanne, has used it with some browns to get like a real vintagey look, and it goes just as well with your kind of brights as well, your pinks, your lemons, those kind of colours, and works perfectly with the metallics of this embossing powder. So I think this is the 4th time now going in with this heart. It's not a Thirsty Brush heart, it's just one that I found in my stash at the time. You can use any shape you like. This will work with circles, it will work with rectangles, hexagons as well, and obviously we used hearts and squares, whatever you've got, but you want it to be a solid shape so that when you do your debossing imprint with your stamps, that it really kind of stands out. If your die cut is too detailed, you're not really going to get that kind of stunning look where it stands out a lot. So right, what we need to do now is, if we get our stamp ready, so I'm using this lovely Hugs stamp from one of our older stamp sets, and I'm just bringing the heat tool back in just to remelt some of that embossing powder and set that last layer, and just make sure it's really melted and warm at the time before you go anywhere near it with your stamp, otherwise you just won't get an imprint. So that's really warm now and really thick, and then just line it up and press in your stamp. So I've used a sentiment, but you could use patterns like you'll see in the next card that I'm doing, and give it a really good press in. It'll feel like it's going to stick, but then it will just peel away, and then that's already cool and dry. So that's a really cool look, and you can really play around with all your different stamps. I've definitely seen it done with rubber stamps before. I wasn't 100% sure about trying it with the acrylic and photopolymer stamps, the clear stamps, but I'm glad I gave it a try. It didn't seem to damage my stamp at all. Obviously I can only account for the ones that I've used. If you've got stamps from different companies, they may have different ingredients, so do be careful if you're trying out, say, some of your favourite stamps, because you are dealing with it in heat here. But the ones that I've tried so far have been absolutely fine, and it hasn't made any damage to the stamp at all. So the next one is that other piece of Distress Oxide background, and I've used this lovely kind of torn square that I had in my stash, and this time I'm using the silver lining embossing powder, but the technique is exactly the same. So use the negative of where you've die cut as a stencil, go in with the ink pad, and then tip over your embossing powder and heat set, and repeat 4 to 5 times. So this time I'm going to use a different style of stamp to deboss it into the powder, and I'm going to use from our Reach for the Stars collection. And it's got lots of different kind of starburst and confetti type stamps in there, so I'm going to try and get like a constellation type stamp look into this square. So like I say, I haven't shown you all 4 times that I've done it here, just because it gets a bit boring after a while. You get the idea. But that's me pressing in after I've done 4, and I think I went even deeper, or the embossing powder here was even warmer when I put the stamp in, and it gave a really deep cool emboss, and it's really nice technique to get some texture into your embossing powders and a different way to use your stamp. So here's the 2 cards here. I did have a little bit of a happy accident with the gold Hugs. So the card itself, when I mounted it on, was a little bit wobbly from where I'd used the heat gun so much on the piece of card. So I ran it through my die cutting machine just between my plates, and unfortunately it took a little bit of the shine off the gold, but what it did do was give like a really cool vintagey look to the gold. So it turned out, like I say, a happy accident, and it was worth it to try it and get a different look again with your heat embossing if you're not necessarily after that super shiny gold look it normally gives you. But it all worked out okay. So I really hope you enjoyed those couple of techniques and hopefully learnt something. Do let me know if you try them, like and subscribe, and leave me a comment below, and I will see you next time.